A shoe washed up on the beach, but there was a human foot inside. And then another shoe appeared. Then another. Soon, people started asking, was a serial killer dumping feet into the sea? Imagine you're walking along a quiet beach. You spot a running shoe sitting in the sand. Pretty normal, right? People lose shoes all the time. But then you pick it up and realize there's a human foot still inside. Yeah, not exactly the beach souvenir you were hoping for. This happened on August 20th, 2007, when a 12-year-old girl was walking along the coastline of Jedediah Island in British Columbia, Canada. She noticed a size 12 running shoe that looked almost brand new. Naturally, she picked it up to take a closer look, but the shoe felt weirdly heavy, and when she looked inside, there it was, a nearly intact human foot. Obviously, that's horrifying enough on its own, but 6 days later, it happened again. A couple were hiking along the coast of Gabriola Island, about 50 kilometers south of Jedediah Island, when they came across another running shoe. And yep, another human foot was still inside. Now here's where things got seriously creepy. The two shoes weren't even the same. Different brands, different models, different sizes, and both were for the right foot. So these weren't two shoes from the same person. They belonged to two completely different people, and somehow both had ended up in the same general area. Then it happened again and again and again. Over the following years, shoes containing human remains started washing up around the Salish Sea with disturbing regularity. Usually, one or two would show up every year. By 2019, investigators had found 21 different shoes containing human remains. And once people realized how many there were, the theories started flying. Some people thought the feet could have belonged to victims of the massive 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. Others came up with darker explanations involving kidnappers, gang violence, and organized crime. But one theory really took off online: a serial killer. People started calling him the Salish Sea Killer. The idea was that some unknown murderer was killing people, removing their feet, putting them in running shoes, and dumping them into the ocean. The currents would then carry the shoes all over the Salish Sea. Honestly, if you heard that story without knowing anything else, it sounds terrifying, like something you'd expect to hear on a Netflix documentary at 2 in the morning. But there was a problem. There was basically no evidence for it. The main case people pointed to happened in Seattle in December 2011. A shoe was found inside a plastic bag, and this one actually still had part of the lower leg attached. That definitely sounds suspicious, but investigators believed this case was most likely connected to an unrelated homicide. In other words, it wasn't evidence of some mysterious ocean serial killer. And once DNA testing was done on the other remains, the mystery started looking a lot less sinister. Investigators discovered that most of the feet belonged to people who had actually drowned in the Salish Sea. Some deaths appeared to be accidental. Others may have been intentional. One of the remains even belonged to a fisherman who had disappeared way back in 1987. So now we have another question. If these people drowned, why were their feet washing up inside shoes? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. After someone dies in the ocean, marine animals can feed on the remains. Over time, the body can separate, but running shoes are surprisingly good at protecting the feet. And because they're filled with air, they can also float. So while the rest of the body sinks or gets carried somewhere else, the shoe can basically turn into a tiny floating container. Ocean currents then do the rest. They carry these shoes around until eventually they wash up on a beach, which is probably the worst possible way to find out that your beach walk has taken a very dark turn. And that's why the Salish sea killer theory doesn't really hold up. There was no confirmed serial killer, no mysterious murderer leaving a trail of shoes across the coastline. Just a series of tragic drownings combined with the weird physics of floating shoes and ocean currents. The discoveries became especially common between 2007 and 2019, but they didn't completely stop. Another case was reported as recently as July 2023. So, the next time you're walking along a beach and see a lonely running shoe sitting in the sand, maybe just leave it there. Seriously, you don't need to investigate everything. Sometimes a shoe is just a shoe. And sometimes, well, you really don't want to know what's inside.